Hello, Paleo FX change agents. Michelle and Keith Norris here, coming to you live, and we are so honored to have presidential candidate Congressman Tim Ryan with us today. And we're so excited about his candidacy and what he's all about, because at the end of the day, we know that the people that are supposed to be up in Washington fighting for us and working for the people generally are not. They're usually in the pockets of big ag, big pharma, big companies, big insurance, the whole works. And one of the things that we can say is, because we have gotten to know Tim Ryan personally, we've gotten to talk to him personally. You've seen a Facebook Live a few months ago with him, and we're so honored to have him on now. And he has a completely different line about how he believes things should be done in Washington. So Tim, tell us, what is your main platform going to be about, and what are your plans if elected?
Thank you. Yeah.
Hold on, when elected.
I appreciate it. You know, it's fun to actually be standing still, because the last time we did this, we were like running out of the J Virgin event. So it's great that we're like seated and chilling out. I'm really excited about the campaign. Thanks for the opportunity to connect with your community. You know, I feel we're not doing things properly in the United States. And I feel like we're really having the wrong discussion around the economy, around healthcare, around a lot of different things. But my focus is going to be on how we move from a healthcare system that is basically built around disease, and how much, you know, the pharmaceutical companies could make, how much the healthcare companies could make, and profiting off of disease. I want to try to flip this system and say, okay, yeah, of course we want to take care of people who need healthcare when they're sick, but really the healthcare system should be focused on keeping people healthy. And how do we have bigger conversations around food and agriculture to make sure that system is streamlined to keep us healthy, and really flip the incentives, because now the incentives are, you know, how can we make money off of disease? How do we incentivize health? How do doctors, you know, how do we have incentives for doctors to keep their patients healthy? For patients who are healthy to have incentives, and the healthcare companies and Medicare and Medicaid, all of this should be built around keeping us healthy. That's the fundamental thrust of my healthcare program, and it speaks to food and agriculture as well.
Yeah, right now, the big thing, of course, is that we subsidize the foods that actually are making us sick, which is interesting, because most people are like, well, healthy food costs a lot more. And in the long run, that's not true. Even with subsidies, it's not true, because at the end of the day, what are you going to end up ultimately paying for? A sick care and trying to take care of yourself long term, because you now have a health care issue. And so I love the fact that you're the first person that's really come into this and seen this for what it is, that we have a sick care system, not a healthcare system, and we need to change that. And so I'm really interested too. One of our speakers, Dr. Kristen Camella, is coming to Paleo FX, and she's going to be speaking. I was just at her conference. She's the president of the Academy of Regenerative Practices. She owns U.S. Stem Cell Research and does stem cell procedures, and has been since either the late 90s, I can't remember exactly. Back then, there was a thing that came up, and FDA made a ruling that stem cells were a medical practice, that they were a practice of medicine, and that therefore they could not say that somebody's cells or tissues that were removed from their body and then replaced back into their body after a process to remove stem cells could be considered a drug. They said that was actually the practice of medicine. That was not their jurisdiction. They needed to stay out of it. Now, 10 years later, we have a very large drug company. I will not say their name, but there is a very large drug company that actually has a drug that is coming. They are bringing it online. It's in all of the appropriate studies currently. It's $500,000 a dose. And it is what's happening now is the FDA is coming back and has now actually filed suit against her. They filed suit against her last year. She's been fighting it for over a year. because at the end of the day, she believes that your cells are your choice and that they belong to you. They are not a drug, and that the FDA has no jurisdiction or ruling over whether or not you use your own stem cells to actually heal. The stem cell procedures are between $5,000 and $8,000 for the procedure, depending on how that procedure is being carried out. So I just want to know what your thoughts are around the fact that the FDA is definitely in the pockets of large pharma, and that takes away opportunities for people to heal in a natural way and to use their own cells to naturally heal.
Yeah, I'd have to learn more about it, but my general inclination is it sounds like a bunch of mission creep from the pharmaceutical industry, where they're trying to get their arms around opportunities to make more money. And the FDA should. I don't understand all the health and safety or whatever, but being in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry, and you look at the amount of money that the pharmaceutical industry gives to candidates and what they raise and they put into super PACs and all of that stuff, that's where the problem is, the money influence in the politics. I'm not sure, but I'm one of the only candidates out there talking about publicly financing elections so that you can get this money out. It is the root cause of all of the issues you talked about, the concentration and monopolies in agriculture, the pharmaceutical industry, and the amount of money and influence they have. I think it's important. We got to get this money out. I'll look at that in particular, and I'll give a good answer. But my value system, in line with everything else that we've kind of talked about already, is to check the pharmaceutical industry's power in Washington, D.C. I'm going to take them on when I'm president of the United States, and there won't be this mission creep into some of these areas when it's going to cost the amount of money. Would you say $5,000-$8,000 or whatever it is? The costs are tremendous. I see it all the time in my district in Ohio, of people who can't afford prescription drugs. And that's why I say, back to the original point, if you want to kneecap the pharmaceutical industry, let's all get healthy.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. Tim, from a policy perspective, where do you think the skinny end of the wedge is? So we have this entire cycle of incentivizing and subsidizing foods that make us sick, which in turn makes for a sick population, which in turn feeds big pharma and big medical. And it's just this recurring cycle. Where is that skinny end of the wedge?
Well, I think you've got to bring in the farmers. I think, as president, what I'll do is I'll sit down and convene with the farmers, but small, mid-sized farmers, with people in the industry, with health professionals, and school systems, and figure out how do we build out a robust regional agricultural system. How do we put incentives in place? So there's a lot of farmers, they've put a lot of money into the old system. They're kind of playing the game. They're trying to make money. They're not. The farmers haven't made a profit in 5 years. Now you have the trade issue that's, really hit them hard. Now you have the flooding that's really hit them hard. I was just in Iowa last week. These farmers are hurting. Rural America is in recession. So I think we go to them and say, look, we want to help you sequester carbon. We want to help you produce this, regionally sustainable food, regenerative agriculture, no-till farming, cover crops. And how do we make sure that they're getting paid to do that? And if they've got to transition away from the capital investments they've made into the old farming, into the kind of industrial side of farming, how do we help them transition out? And as you talked about just a few minutes ago, we're going to save so much money in the long run in our healthcare system that I think it's a good investment by the taxpayer to say, hey, let's get you out of here, but let's bring the farmers to the table. Another thing is, the average age of the farmers today is like 58, 59 years old. So there's a bunch of new people that we want to get into farming. They want to be around produce. They want to farm around organics. That's where they want to be. So we can build in programs to start to, incentivize, whether it's veterans who want to go into farming or younger people who want to go into farming. Because, if you're doing produce, you need refrigerated trucks, as opposed to just put the row crops into a silo. So we've got to help them transition out. And the president's job, I believe, is to convene that. And I would just say to anybody listening that wants to help me, they can go to timryanforamerica.com and say, look, I need to get on the debate stage in June, and would love to have their help and support. Any low dollar donations help me get on that stage. We need 65,000 of them in order to get on stage. And if they want a presidential candidate at the national level, at a national debate, talking about health and food and regenerative agriculture, I'm your guy. That is going to be a main thrust of my agenda, is allowing people not just to survive, but to actually thrive. And that means we've got to be concerned with their health and the incentives that have got to be there. And then, as we just talked about, putting the agricultural systems in place to sustain that healthy, fresh food that we want our people to eat.
And we have living, working examples of this already. I mean, it's not pie in the sky. We have Polyface Farms in the Shenandoah Valley. We have Rome Ranch here in Fredericksburg, Texas. These operations work, they're profitable, and they're good for the environment.
Yeah, yes. No question. We have a video. We have a food video. I don't know if you guys have seen it. We can send it to you and you can share with your community. But I went to a farm. It's a few miles away from my house in Northeast Ohio, and it was a 10-acre farm. They had hoop houses and the whole 9 yards. And this 10-acre farm was making more money than the 1,000-acre farms that were all around them. And they were better for the environment. They were opening up a little cafe in the downtown area and doing a lot of, food to table stuff or farm to table stuff. I mean, that's exciting to me because we can create employment in rural communities. It's much better for the environment. You're actually sequestering carbon, so you're helping with climate issues. I mean, this is a win-win-win across the board for everybody, but we need the leadership in the White House that's going to actually make this happen.
Right.
Yeah. The thing is, this is one of the things that I have found interesting. I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit just so you can kind of talk about one of the other things. Obviously, we are all actually behind you and support you in the fact that you take healthcare very seriously, food, nutrition, and everything, because we fight for our rights every day to our own food freedom and for us to have the choices that we currently have that are actually working to be taken away from us by big ag and some of the big corporate America. So my question to you is, our current president believes that coal and what the current system that we have for energy is what we should continue to have sunk cost in. Or my thought process, we already have sunk costs there. Can we move away from a situation that we know is not working and is not good for the environment and is actually dangerous for the workers that are involved in that? And let's move to a cleaner energy, a renewable energy, that type of thing. Can you speak about that a little bit too?
Yeah, sure can. So we have a lot of former coal miners, retired coal miners in Western Pennsylvania and Ohio. I think it's important that we take care of their retirements, their benefits. They've worked really tough lives, providing the nation with its energy. So we have to take care of them. We've got to move to more renewable sources of energy. There's no question about it. I actually think this is a jobs program in the United States. There are 8,000 or 800 component parts to a windmill, a wind turbine. That all needs manufactured. If we move to electric vehicles, there's going to be 30 million made by 2030. We should be making those in the United States, the batteries in the United States, the electric charging stations in the United States. Those are up as solar right now. China's cleaning our clock in the solar industry. They control about 60% of the solar market. They control about 40% of the electric vehicle market. So as we move towards cleaner energy, I see that as a jobs program. And what my program is going to have is, again, sitting down with business. I don't think we can be hostile to business. We can be hostile to concentration of wealth. We can be hostile to monopolies. We can be hostile to income inequality. But at the end of the day, if we're going to ramp up and decarbonize the American economy, we're going to need the innovation and the ability to scale that comes with it, with the private sector. But here's what I want to do. I want to use venture, again, convening, using the authority and power of the presidency, convene the venture capitalists, convene, the banks, convene the Department of Energy, right? That are all going to be involved. What infrastructure do we need to actually get this investment into the distressed communities, the old coal communities, the old auto communities, the old steel communities, the rural areas that are being hit so hard right now? I want the new investments for the new economy, making sure they're getting to communities where people need a good job, and you got to cut these workers in on the deal. I mean, the problem with the coal miners are that they're making $100,000 a year in rural West Virginia. Of course, they don't want to switch to a job making 15 bucks an hour. So the new jobs we're putting in there have got to be good paying jobs too for them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to places like West Virginia and say, look, I'm committed to bringing this investment to you. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. I know about people running a bunch of game at us, a bunch of politicians saying they're going to bring these new jobs. I am committed to the structural changes that we need to make in order to get these investments into these communities.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. I can't say enough how much we believe in renewable energy. We believe in regenerative agriculture. We believe in a healthcare system that actually works for everyone. And one of the things that is interesting is that we had a friend a few years ago who said that it's very difficult for a government to control a healthy and mindful population. The problem is that the only way that can be controlled is if we are sick and we are dependent. And so I love the fact that you're wanting to switch that up and change things, because at the end of the day, we're a much more progressive, productive, better society all around if we're all healthy and we all have good states of mind and have the ability to think critically instead of actually being controlled because we're dependent. Yeah. And so I love the fact that you're on that.
Well, it goes in. Go ahead if you want to ask.
I was also going to say, and we are champions of entrepreneurship too, because these are where the new bright ideas come from.
Yes.
And you have people rise up. Within our paleo community, there have been so many innovations in health and wellness that have come from the grassroots up to fill a niche. And that niche is people who want health independence. They want to be captains of their own health. And they realize that they're in this manufactured human zoo that's tough to get out of.
Yeah. Well, it starts in our schools, right? We have got to teach. And again, this is a centerpiece of my education agenda. I am going to be the education president. We are going to transform our schools. That starts with social and emotional learning, which teaches our kids how to be resilient, how to resolve conflict, how to handle their emotions, how to really learn how to be not just physically healthy, because I want to do a big food reform in our schools too. What are we feeding our kids in the schools? A lot of kids get 2, maybe 3 meals at their school before they go home at night. What are we feeding them? Is it contributing to the diabetes epidemic? Is it contributing to heart disease and high blood pressure? Are they eating highly processed foods that diminish their cognitive functions? Or are we giving them food that will allow them to thrive, to focus, to concentrate? Same with the social and emotional learning. We know that the social brain unlocks our ability to learn. We know this now. We have knowledge. We have tests. We have data. We have experience. And I want to take the science, just like we'll do with climate and renewables. How do we transfer that to our institutions, our schools, our military, our, all of our educational, in colleges and universities? How do we get that information in there? And with social and emotional learning, we see an 11 percentile point increase in test scores, a 10% increase in good behavior, a 10% decrease in antisocial behavior. Teaching satisfaction goes up for teachers. Burnout goes down for teachers. The turnover goes down. So just paint this picture. there's a garden at the school. There's a salad bar in the school. We're teaching kids how to best de-escalate out of fight or flight mode so that they can actually focus and access their executive function, so they can access their working memory, their ability to mobilize their attention span, their decision making, like kind of important functions for someone who wants to learn. And then you're building resiliency and the ability to stick up for themselves and solve conflict. So we're teaching them how to eat, how to function, how to focus, how to learn. And then I got a whole vocational program too in the schools. And then they get a good skill.
Right.
You know,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say again, TimRyanForAmerica.com. I need people's help. I mean, I appreciate this platform here because there are millions of people around this country who would just hear what I said and go, I like what that gentleman is saying. I want to help him get on the debate stage and send, you can send $5, $10 to TimRyanForAmerica.com. And if I get 65,000 people to do that, I will get on the debate stage at the end of June on the Democratic debate. And I will be talking about these things. I wrote a book about food. I wrote a book about mindfulness meditation. I'm out of the closet, So like I talk about this stuff all the time, and I'm not going to get up on the debate stage and not talk about this. This is in my heart, and I feel like it's how we're going to transform our country.
And this is a message that nobody else is talking about. Nobody.
Now, when you are referred to as the meditating politician, which I absolutely love because meditation has made such a huge difference in my life. And when I started meditating about, it's been almost 4 years ago, started kind of bookending my days with reading like Bible in the morning or some type of uplifting type of book in the morning, and then meditating usually in the evening, or sometime if I had stress in the afternoon, I'd do that. So I really love the fact that you want to bring that into schools too. But I do want to ask you a question. So one of the things that I've noticed, particularly as an adult and going through life and through financial crisis and different things, is that we have no mechanism for teaching children how to handle money, to handle debt, how to take care of their finances, how to properly understand what to do with money and how to use it. And one of the things that I notice is that what we do immediately when children go to school, they go off to college, what we do is we immediately put them into debt as they get out, particularly with it's like, oh, it's no big deal. You're going to go ahead and get those student loans. It's just a student loan. But they come out of school and a lot of times can't get a job. A lot of times they are anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000 in debt. And this is how we teach them initially how to go and handle money. And my thought process is there's got to be a better way. And we have one of our speakers that comes to Paleo FX. Her name is Christina Wise. She's been actually a financial mentor to Keith and myself. She has a program that I have told her, I don't care what you do, we got to go because it's got to teach children how to not go into debt. It has to teach them. And I want to know if this is part of your platform as well, because that's important.
Yeah, I think, we got to take care of our kids and we got to teach them how to live. And that's where the social and emotional learning comes into play, the food comes into play, and I definitely think there needs to be a financial literacy component of what we're teaching our kids. I mean, as basic as like compounding interest, how does that happen? Learning how to put some money away in the stock market and why that's important. Those kind of things should be taught in school, and I think school would be a heck of a lot more fun if you're learning real life skills about these things. And I think that's really going to be important. And then to have some policies in place, part of it too, when you're talking about college, is this big myth that everybody has to go to college. Right. I mean, that's ridiculous. And we've put so many people in debt because of that. And again, back in the day, the banks were making a ton of money and still are off of student loans. And it's a pretty good gig because if they loan the money, and somebody defaults on it, the government pays the tab.
Right.
And if the person pays it back, the bank makes all the money. So you socialize the risk to the taxpayer, and then you privatize the profits. Not a bad gig. If you can get it. But the problem is you'd lock everybody in debt. And so figuring out ways to say, look, vocational education in high school, let's get you on a track. If you want to go to be an apprenticeship in the union, you want to go in the farming and regenerative agriculture, how do we get you on that track? You want to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, how do we get you on that track? So you know what direction you're going in. But I definitely think financial literacy needs to be a component of that.
Right. If we could just teach economics in that way, the very, very basics, like you said, compounding interest, the eighth wonder of the world, right? And ask a high schooler, I guarantee you they don't know what it is. And I didn't either coming out of high school. I mean, this wasn't taught to me in high school. And a solid home ec program to where you're learning both, you know, what healthy soil is just from the ground zero, literally, pardon the pun, from ground zero, what is healthy soil and what does that produce? And then what can you do with that product? How can you cook it? How can you use these things? And we've just drifted away from that, as we have drifted away from basic physical education. 71% of our 17 to 24-year-olds don't qualify for military service. And that's even before the physical portion of the test. They're just overweight or over-medicated. And I mean, if that's not a canary in the coal mine, that again, no one in Washington seems to, I mean, it's just a big shoulder shrug right now, except for someone like myself is bringing this stuff.
That's why I'm running. I mean, this is why I'm excited to run. This is why I'm excited to be on with you, because not only I'm excited because I know that these are the answers, but I know there's an army of people out in the country that I'm connecting with through friends like you that are like, hell yeah. You know, I just did a food Facebook Live the other day, you know, on healthcare and food. And like, nobody's doing that. I'm doing it. And I'm telling you, we're going to come out of nowhere with an army of people supporting me, giving me $5-10. That's all I need. You know, a million people to send me $5 every now and again. And we'll keep this train going. And we're going to surprise a lot of people because the system is so broke. People are so tired of just like, look, nobody wants to pay taxes, right? I mean, nobody wants to, but we have to. It's our obligation because we have a civilized society and we need schools and hospitals and roads and bridges. I mean, that's just the way it goes, right? But to be so disrespectful of taxpayers, to just say, hey, we're just going to throw this money down a black hole, whether it's the healthcare system or the education system or, you know, the criminal justice system. I mean, go throughout the entire country. We're operating under old systems that were built for an old time, an old age that doesn't even exist anymore. We got to modernize the government and say, hey, you know, this is the plan. Social and emotional learning, regenerative agriculture, pay farmers to sequester carbon, no-till. You know, like this is where we're going. Here's the education system. Here's the research. Here's the innovation. We're going to help with, you know, early stage capital to get innovation around the next generation of batteries, for example, or whatever. How do we grow these companies in distressed communities so that you're bringing economic viability? So everything's now becomes local. You got local food, a local economy, local innovation. You know, you begin to focus on, we're going to do a whole urban Marshall Plan where we're going to focus on downtowns. I mean, we're going to clean up blight. We're going to invest in the old theaters, you know, in old historic buildings so that we can build community downtown and then make sure that downtown is wired. And there's, you know, people have a quality of life, river walks, bike trails, clean up these rivers, you know, like in Youngstown that the steel mills used and abused for a long time. How do we clean those up? So you can start to see like this is the new America that I envision. And I just know there's a lot of people out there that think the same way. And I need your help. You know, we can do this together and we can transform the country.
I agree. And you guys, it doesn't matter if you donate as long as we get 65,000 individual donations into Tim, he gets to get on the stage and he gets to debate this stuff for us. And you guys, he's fighting for us. And that's something that we need to get behind. If we want to continue to hold on to our food freedom, we want to continue to hold on to our rights in the healthcare sector, if we want to continue to hold on to what's happening with all of our farms and everything like that, one of the questions, you guys need to get behind him and help him. This is the deal. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you are a Republican, if you are a Democrat, if you are a libertarian, whatever you are, it does not matter. What at the end of the day, we need to stop worrying about voting a party line and voting for the issue that we care about. I don't know what happened there. We need to start voting for the issues that we care about and for the people that are actually going to go fight for the way that we think and we believe and that we trust in. And so I want to ask you this this question too. So in the EU, there are 1,328 banned chemicals. And out of those 1,328 chemicals, only 30 of them have we banned in the United States. There are so many toxic chemicals in all of the things that are allowed by the FDA in pharmaceuticals, in products, in cleaning supplies, in you name it. And we're super loaded with toxins. And I want to know what your thoughts are about that as well, because we, at the end of the day, our environment is still, we are still a product of our environment. And if our environment is toxic, we're going to have those toxins within us as well. So I'd love to see what we're going to be able to do around that as well.
I think we need a commission or some entity supported by the President of the United States that says we want to look at all of this. Why in Europe are they protecting the health, safety, wellness of their citizens, and we're not doing it here in the United States? And what are those chemicals that are in there? And how do we start to look at the connections between our industrialized society around cancer, around heart disease, around really mental health, which is a huge issue. We have 40 million people that have anxiety related issues. What's going on with our microbiome? What's going on with our gut bacteria? And we know now more about our microbiome than we ever knew before, and how it communicates with our brain. And so obviously if the food and chemicals that you're ingesting can distort the balance in your microbiome, what we need to know more about that. And so I will be obviously protective of that. I got a young family, I got young kids. We want to make sure that we know what's going on. And then if we've got to ban stuff, we ban it, because the health of our citizens is more important than someone making a profit.
Amen. 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 We totally believe in that as well. And so we are actually honored at Paleo FX, and Keith and I personally, to actually back you and to be part of bringing about this grassroots movement behind Tim and the message and the platform that he plans to bring into this next presidential race. And so listen, you guys, it does not matter if you are a Republican, if you are a libertarian, if you are a Democrat. What matters is he is speaking your language, and he is going to come in and he's going to fight for the things that you believe in, especially the people that are in our community. This is the first politician that has come to us and said, these are the things that I believe in, and I believe in everything, your whole message. And we are so excited and so honored to be part of helping you in your platform and moving you forward and getting you on that stage in June.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I just say to everybody, trust me, I've been in Washington now 17 years. I know how easy it is to just say, look, I don't want to deal with that shit. No one's making any sense. It's corrupt. It's, there's too much. I get it. I'm jumping in this race because I know there's an army of people who really want to flip the system on its head. And I'm your guy. But I need your help. I can't be out there on my own. And look, I'm a radical in some ways, I guess, because we're talking about these kinds of things. But I don't think being healthy and wanting people to thrive is a radical statement at all.
Right.
And we're gonna work with the free market. We're gonna work with business. We're gonna work with farmers. It's about not being divided, but about coming together. I don't want to get in and jam some agenda down somebody's throat, and then 2 years later another party comes in and undoes everything we do. I think there's enough people, especially around social and emotional learning, that what I was explaining to everybody, that has the support of both the Brookings Institute, which is a left-leaning group, and the American Enterprise Institute, which is a very conservative think tank. But they're both supportive of social and emotional learning. So I'm hoping that with my leadership in the White House, we'll actually be able to do this because we'll have the left-right divide. It'll be the same around food. If we can bring in these family farms who haven't made any money in 5 years with people like you and the public health people and the environmentalists and everybody, how do we come together left and right to pass a new kind of farm bill that actually incentivizes the kind of things that we're talking about? This is doable. And if Tim Ryan, I hate when people talk about themselves in the third person, but if this candidate walks out here and he's got an army behind him of people sending him $5-10, every couple of weeks, and he's raising all kinds of money and he's talking about something completely different, guess what? Every other candidate's going to go, yeah, we need to talk about food, right? Because they're going to lick their finger and put it up in the air and see where all the energy is. Let's do this. We can do this together. I jumped. I got a young family. I like being in Congress. My youngest is 4.5 years old. Our kids are in high school. This is my family. We're in because we think we can shift this country. I need your help and support. TimRyanForAmerica.com. Send me a few bucks and let's go do this.
Tim, we have long said that this is our generation's civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Health and wellness is our generation's civil rights movement. And there is, like you say, a massive grassroots push, but we need help in Washington. That civil rights movement would not come full circle if there was not a push in Washington pushing down as the grassroots pushed up. And we need the same thing in health and wellness. And that's why we support you.
Man, you're speaking my language because, Youngstown, Ohio, people think where I'm from, is all white people. I'd like half of Youngstown is African American. And I go into the schools and I go into the neighborhoods. And you're right. This is a social justice issue as well. I mean, this is, there's no healthy food. We're competing against China. They got 1.4 billion people. We only have 330 million people in the United States. I think it would be best for us to be most competitive if everyone is thriving, if everyone is healthy. And we've got to deal with these structural poverty issues. And people say, well, how are you going to do that? We're going to get kids good food. We're going to make sure they have social and emotional health because we know that unlocks their ability to learn. We're going to start with some fundamentals. Like if you're, I remember just real quick, I know we're wrapping it up, but I played a lot of sports in my day. And I remember I was a quarterback. And I remember our offense would get more and more complicated as the season went on, right? You'd add this play and this formation. And then, then about game 5 or 6, like we'd lose. And the coaches, I had a bunch of old school coaches. The next practice, you know what we did? Blocking,
right?
Passing, lifting weights,
right?
Running out routes, just back to the fundamentals because, we've gotten way out over our skis. What I'm saying is let's get back to the fundamentals. Healthy food, social and emotional and cognitive health, mental health promotion, take care of the soil, the air, the water, the soil, make sure kids aren't living in homes with lead paint and lead in the water and they have access to fresh food. I mean, come on, back to the fundamentals. We can go fight about everything else later, but let's get back to the fundamentals.
Well, this is one of the things that we will say, particularly for our group, is that at the end of the day, we really don't care how you choose to identify yourself. If you're paleo, if you're keto, if you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, if you're whatever it is that you might do, what we all can agree on is that we have to get processed food out of our system. We have to get ourselves going back to the basics, eating whole, real foods so that we can stop some of this epidemic of high, diabetes, heart disease, cancer rates. All of these are soaring. Y'all, they're actually soaring for our children. That is a travesty. It is actually an abomination of the fact that all of the adults in this country cannot just come together and recognize that they've made some serious errors and we have to correct it, because they don't have control. Those children don't have control. We do. And so at the end of the day, we all have to fight for the kids that cannot fight for themselves, that cannot voice for themselves that the food that they're eating is not healthy, does not make them feel good, actually makes them sick. And I think that it is an absolute disgrace that we have allowed this to happen in this country. Yeah. And so I am going to tell you, we have up on the screen, Tim Ryan for America. Please help him get on the platform. You don't have to vote for him, but help him get on the platform so that he can get out there and he can get everybody talking about this. We will be voting for him. And so I'm just telling you, this is where things change. This is where things start, is where we actually get somebody out there who starts talking about this stuff so they understand. And then when we have a group like us behind Tim, and there's not just us, there's a lot of groups that are in the health and wellness space that have backed Tim, that are getting behind him, that want this message to come out. They don't necessarily agree with everything that we think. We don't agree with everything they think, but this is the one thing we can agree on. We have to start talking about it. It has to get out there, and he has to get on to that platform and start talking about this in a completely large stage and platform like the Democratic primary.
If you want to see some deer in the headlights looks on the debate stage, just wait till these topics start to be brought up.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Because no one else has an answer for it. Nobody else has an answer for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, I was just on George Stephanopoulos' show this morning, and I was talking about, flipping this system, making us healthy, incentivizing doctors, and kind of the same way we talk now. I was on a show a couple of days ago talking about food. So we talk about this in public settings. Yeah, people ask me about jobs in the economy, and I address that. But when I talk about healthcare, I talk about getting away from a disease care system. I talk about how 75% of our healthcare costs are from chronic diseases that are largely preventable through lifestyle changes. How can you run for president in 2019 and not have that as a part of your answer when you're talking about the healthcare system? Right. It's 75% of our healthcare costs are because of this stuff, and we're not even having a conversation about it. So I'm going to drive this conversation. You're going to help me, and we're going to make a big difference here. It's going to be a big contribution to the future of our country, our healthcare system, our competitiveness as a country relies on us making these changes.
Indeed.
Well, we are committed to helping as many people in the world get healthy. I know that JJ's personal goal is that she was going to help 3 million people get healthy. I think with being able to back someone like you going into this presidential race is going to help us be able to do that as well. And so you guys, if you're watching this now, please share this. If you are watching it on replay, please hashtag replay. Please share this. Please tell everybody that cares about healthcare, cares about food. Sorry, I can't talk. Cares about all of these things in this realm as far as mental and emotional health for children and for having good nutrient-dense food. Please share this with them. We need to get yes, Frank, hold on. I got to put this up here because he's totally right. We need 1,000 like you, Tim. And so please share this with everybody that cares about this subject, and make sure that we help Tim get on that stage at the Democratic debates. And we are just so honored that you decided to join us today, and that we get to be part of helping you further your platform to go on and become the president of the United States.
Well, you guys get me fired up too, because I know I'm going in with an army. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll send you other links for some of our videos and stuff, and we're pumped. So thank you.
Right on.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You'll be seeing us a lot in the next 2 weeks. Paleo FX is running up in less than 2 weeks, and we would love to have all of you there. We'll be talking a lot more about this type of thing at Paleo FX. And please, again, share this #replay and make sure that you guys take care of each other. And we will see you guys again soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.